Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Taxation in Nigeria, like other parts of the world, remains an unpopular yet mandatory financial charge imposed on taxpayers by governments. Yet Nigeria revenue from taxes continues to be dwarfed by oil revenue earnings, which means that we are still far off from diversifying our economy. Joining us this morning to speak on tax administration in Nigeria is Kunle Elebute, Managing Partner of KPMG Nigeria. Welcome to the morning show.
Thank you very much.
Now, taxation still unpopular in Nigeria, like in many parts of the world. Our revenue in this country still largely dependent on oil revenue. Now, what can the government do differently to bring taxation as a major source of revenue and as well as exploring other sources of revenue, other alternatives to oil?
Well, thank you so much. I know it's a tall order, and it's a heavy question, to be honest with you. You know, every discussion on tax always starts with the tax to GDP ratio, 6%. For me, it's a rhetoric, unfortunately. You know, but fundamentally, is that if you really want to get tax revenue to grow and increase, you have to grow the economy. When the economy is not growing, you can't expect tax revenue to increase. I studied economics at university before I trained as an accountant, and the math doesn't add up. So we need to really step back as a country and say to ourselves, what is the minimum growth rate we need to drive this economy? You know, I give you one example. You know, after Tiananmen Square in China in 1989, the Chinese government decided that so that they don't have a repeat of what happened in Tiananmen Square, the minimum growth rate in China will be 8%. And they achieved 8 to 10% for about 20, 25 years. Transformed the economy, fundamentally, because it then takes many people out of the low income into the middle class, whether lower middle class or middle income status. And therefore, they have much money available to them to pay taxes. That's one aspect. Another major aspect, of course, is the issue of trust. You know, taxpayers need to see that what are you using the tax money to do, in effect? Because if you're using the tax money to pay recurrent expenditure, to finance elephant projects, then why should we pay taxes? Granted, you know, it is a civic duty. We must pay our taxes. But the reality is that, countries where, the political leaders and those at the helm of affairs do not use the tax money to grow the economy and to develop the economy, will find that the trust equation will be broken. And in Nigeria, that is the first step. I think Lagos State government over the last 20 years has tried very hard and improved that trust equation significantly. I remember very well in 1999 when Bola Tinubu became governor, monthly revenue was about $1 billion naira. Today, last count is well over 30 billion, 33 billion, but it's over 20 years. And we live in Lagos. You've seen what's happened in Lagos in the last 20 years. There's still a lot of work to do, but there's been quite a bit of transformation around the way the city has been developed over time, using mainly tax money. So, to recap, no growth, you won't see increase in tax revenue. And you can't tax businesses that are not doing well. When companies make losses, where the tax law works, you can carry losses forward for a number of years, which means that if you make profits the following year, you recoup the losses of the previous year, and still you don't pay the full taxes because you have losses to recoup. Secondly, also, many countries also use taxes to drive investment, because low tax rates mean that you drive investment, and when the investments begin to crystallize and those businesses begin to make profits, then they can pay. They get into a higher tax paying level, essentially. So there are a number of things that we have to do together. And finally, for me, we have to move away from this, when we do our budget, because the fiscal policy, is all about how do we grow the economy, how do we drive the economy to be attractive for investment, and how do we use that investment to ensure that we can create more revenue sources and also get people to pay more taxes. And we've always focused on appropriation. So every year we go to the budget, to the National Assembly, present the budget, and there's a long debate, and the committees meet, and they end up with what they call an appropriation bill. Many more countries have moved away from appropriation bill to more of a finance bill, which reflects the fiscal policy of the government, which includes the budget, which only does the numbers, how we're going to spend, but it also needs to include how we're going to drive revenue. And if you want to make amendments to a tax law, you don't have to wait until amend this tax law. You can use the finance bill every year to tweak the tax law regularly so that you can actually have revenue sources included in the finance bill, drive revenue sources, and it's a more balanced document for anybody to understand and read. Because then you have the revenue side based on fiscal policy, you have the spending side based on the current and capital expenditure. And of course, one day the oil revenues that we have today will not be there. So we need to prepare for the long haul when the revenues will not be there.
Indeed. Well, another way to improve revenue from tax is to broaden the base, right? In 2017, the federal government introduced VADES, Voluntary Assets Income Declaration Scheme. But at the end of the scheme and the amnesty window given to defaulting organizations and individuals, the government still fell short of the $1 billion target. Why do you think that this failed?
I think it failed because I don't think it was properly defined and exactly what did they want to achieve and how did they want to achieve it essentially. I think it was rushed. And then again, it was targeted, to be honest with you, with those people that have very high incomes, as opposed to the bottom of the pyramid where you want to increase the base, or the informal sector, for example. So, unfortunately, I don't think it was properly thought through, wasn't properly implemented, and some of us knew up front that this thing wasn't going to derive the kind of numbers they're looking for. So that's one. But coming back to the broadening tax base, when you say broadening tax base, you want people who are at the bottom of the pyramid to pay more taxes. Now, clearly, in many countries, if you are earning below the poverty level, or if your income is in the poverty level, you shouldn't pay taxes, because really you haven't got much. You can hardly have income just to even survive. Okay. Now, the only way you can get people who have little or nothing to survive to move up the ladder is that you must grow the economy. If you grow this economy in Nigeria for 6% per annum, compounded in 10 years to double the GDP. If you grow at 10% per annum, 6 years, compounded, you grow double GDP size. So if you grow the economy, then people who are at the poverty level will move up the income ladder. And as they move up the income ladder, they begin to pay taxes. Okay? And that's where the population is. But those people also at that bottom also expect to receive in return. They must see what the tax naira is being used for. Primary health care, for example, improving primary education, improving water availability, the road network in my community, the security in my community is also working as well. If I income increases and I see those things happening, I will regularly pay taxes. So when you say broaden the tax base, it's about getting more people into the tax net. But they can only be in tax net if you've got income. No income, no tax.
But there has been the debate in recent times with the VAT, and the debate is about, do you increase the VAT or do you increase the number of people who pay the VAT? I think a lot of people settled for get those who are already the bigger fishes to pay more, and not to get those who you have now described as below, the poverty line to get. Is that what you're basically saying? Get those who are paying more.
Yeah, I mean, VAT...
Then get the big guys to pay more.
Yeah, I mean, VAT is indirect tax, and it's supposed to, help to tax consumption at the source of spending, in effect. So, if I can afford to go to a restaurant and pay 1,000 naira for a meal, I should be ready to pay VAT on that kind of...
So it's VAT on luxury goods?
No, and on consumption.
Okay.
So the person who buys a car for ₦1 million will pay a VAT of 5% of ₦1 million. If he buys a car for 100 million, he pays 5% of 100 million. It's a much bigger number. So the rate is the same,
okay,
but the amount you actually pay will differ based on what you consume. Yeah, that's the principle of VAT. It's an indirect tax. And in many countries, especially developed countries, they found that its indirect taxes are a lot more effective to be able to capture people who spend much more money at the point of consumption. Because sometimes, the income that people are spending, for example, may have been derived from an activity which may have not, reflected much. For example, if I buy shares on the stock exchange today and I sell those shares, there's no capital gains tax on the profit I make on selling my shares on the stock exchange. So if I make a profit of 100 million naira, no taxes. But if I use that money to go and buy a car, I'll pay VAT. So VAT captures everybody who spends money at the point of spending. So it's more equitable in effect. But the other thing, of course, is that if you then also decide to move the VAT, because our current VAT is more like a sales tax, but VAT means that you should be able to get tax refunds on things which are not vatable, for example. So you have input tax and output tax, I net both off. Okay. So if you want to raise VAT rate to 7.5% or 10% or 12%, like most countries are, you must run it like a proper indirect tax, and you must allow people to be able to apply for refunds when they are due for refunds. For example, most people go overseas to foreign countries and they spend in their country. When they're leaving, for example, they can make a refund at point of exit.
Exactly.
And they actually get money almost immediately, or they put it in your bank account later on. So that's a proper VAT system. So if you want to move the tax rate, you've got to move it to a proper VAT system, which means that there's a much more tax administrative burden when you want to have a proper VAT system running.
Ahead of the general elections, the PDP and its presidential candidate came up with a different dimension, saying that they will reduce taxes in order to attract more investment and increase productivity in the country. Well, the PDP candidate did not win, but chances are, because they are still at the tribunal. Is this a system you would subscribe to?
Yes. I mean, clearly, if you want to make your economy much more competitive, tax is another way to be able to attract investment. And therefore, you look at the tax rate vis-a-vis other competing countries, and then you make a decision to say, look, I want to be much more competitive. Secondly, also, by lowering tax rates, if you remember when Ronald Reagan was president in America with supply-side economics, if you reduce taxes, it drove more investment because people had more disposable income to be able to make investments and also drive up the savings rate, which is important for an economy to grow. And also you also want smaller companies to be able to survive at the early stage of growth, and therefore they have a lower tax rate. When they cross a particular threshold, then you can get them to pay a higher tax rate. So they have all kinds of different ways. But you see, overall, you've got to have a fiscal policy that drives growth and investment in an economy. So if you decide to do whatever your other pioneer period with tax-free for a number of years, or you want to have a lower tax rate for smaller businesses, or for informal sector, or you want to drive much more catalysis for investment in plant machinery for much more production, everything has to be in the context of this is a fiscal policy. I want to use fiscal policy to drive economic growth and further investment and savings in the economy. But if it's not done in that context, then you get pushback. People don't understand why we doing what we're doing. At the end of the day, also, if you lower taxes for just lowering taxes rate per se, and you don't have a very strong system of tax collection, you could have much more leakages than the case would be. So you bring taxes down. Hopefully, more people can come into the tax net. We'll pay because they're paying lower taxes. Because when people see taxes are lower, they may be okay. Taxes are lower now. Let me pay taxes. There are more people who are not paying, who should be paying. Hopefully, will come to the tax net. But you must have a system to get to those people who are not paying before, who you now want to pay because you have a lower tax rate.
Well, you talked about growth and investment in different sectors. Let's talk about the oil and gas sector. Successive governments have failed to pass the petroleum industry bill and its offshoots, and we have failed to review this fiscal regime of this sector. How much of an impact has that had on that sector?
Oh, big. It's big. Because, because we've gone through a process to draft the PIB to where it is today. We broke it up and said, let's do the governance bill first. And of course, in any kind of legislative action, typically you bring stakeholders into the know what you want to achieve. You get them to provide input into changes that will make sense for the sector. So having carried along stakeholders over the number of years, there was an expectation that the changes that we are recommending will come through in the bill and eventually the act. And therefore, companies were then prepared to make certain investments because they were going to see a new act or new legislation that would drive investment and growth in that sector. So we've had numbers like some international companies saying, oh, they've approved $15 billion of new investment, but they're waiting for the PIGB to be passed, for example. So clearly, if you don't pass legislation, those companies are prepared to invest. will hold back the investment. And not only that, there are also other companies who are outside the country who are looking inward to see, will the PIB make Nigeria much more, the oil industry in Nigeria much more competitive and much more attractive than country X or country Y or country Z. So again, there's an issue of competitiveness. And if you're much more competitive than other countries, then you attract new investments which ordinarily are not in your country before, but because you're much more competitive, you attract plus those we have and new ones as well will come in. And that hopefully will drive growth, because what you need in any sector is investment, because investment in that sector will continue to drive growth a lot more than the case of look at telecoms, for example. Even though we only have 3 or 4 players, they keep on investing in much more infrastructure, in towers, and so on and so forth. And what does that do? It drives more growth in that sector. Just as an example.
Now, one of the complaints of a lot of corporate organizations is multiplicity of taxes by different tiers of government, federal, state, local government, and even some tiers of local government charge different taxes in under different guises and different names. So how do we deal with this kind of problem?
Again, I think you go back again to the fundamentals. If you don't grow an economy, people will always be, become very. We use all kinds of gimmicks to try and to make revenue, rather than because the economy is growing essentially. And it's a shame. It's a real shame because there's lack of resources, and political leaders or government agencies want to increase revenue. Then you ask yourself, even the revenue that they're collecting, what are they using to do? You're in the port, for example, and you want to collect a container. You know how many agencies at the port you have to go through, and everyone wants a slice of that container. By the time the things you imported in the container get into the consumer, you're not competitive. So I know that all kinds of different ways that the Joint Tax Board has tried to reduce multiple taxes and so on and so forth, but fundamentally, until you grow the economy, until the economy is growing much faster and there's a lot more income being generated by the growth of the economy, this thing will stop.
But that was the function for the Joint Tax Board to fix. Why hasn't it been able to do that?
Yeah, but even the Joint Tax Board, Joint Tax Board sits they sit once a month, I don't remember the calendar. But the point is that they can make a pronouncement. Okay. But, one local government chairman who said in Kutuwenji decides that it's going to do this X, Y, Z taxes. They couldn't get to him. Who's going to prevent him from doing what he wants to do? Joint Tax Board doesn't have offices. People sitting in all 773 local governments throughout the whole country. So it's just that, when there's lack of economic growth, when there's lack of economic activity, those in charge in those localities would use the powers that they have to scare corporates. And eventually what happened? They'll pack their bags and go.
It took banditry in Zamfara, killing of a lot of Nigerians, for many people to know that so much mining of gold was going on in that state, which ordinarily some would say should be one of the poorest states. So how do we get a situation where the government issue proper licenses, states benefit from royalties, taxes from these things the benevolent Almighty has put under the soil of many states?
100%. I agree with you entirely. But you see, in any economic activity, you have to have regulations. You have to have the ability to enforce compliance, and you have to be able to ensure that you can attract the right kind of investors into that activity. And if you do so, those investors who have proper governance and they have capital will exploit the resources and pay the right royalties and taxes and so on and so forth to those who they're meant to pay to. But I don't understand the whole nature of what's happening in Zamfara. So I can't really speak as if I'm an expert on that issue. But I've done work in the mining sector before. I did advise a mining client in Ghana many years ago, and it was an open surface mine, for example. It's 6 hours away from Accra. And it's a well-organized, activity. And the mining company, international mining company, working with locals, using capital, was complying with the mining code and paying the right taxes, and being able to export the gold they're exploiting in a defined manner out into Europe on a regular basis. And I taught the mine, spent a couple of weeks in there. You know, I saw how they produced the bullion of gold, for example. I saw the security they had on site. And there are certain activities, for example, which if you don't have the expertise, you import expertise to actually make sure. Because anything you do, if you do it in line with global standards, you will attract the right capital, you will attract the right investment, you will bring the right skills, and the benefit will be derived by the locals as well as the states. Absolutely. You know, now, look at the oil industry, for example. You say to yourself, and you have oil-producing states. Have they not derived the benefit in cash, in what or kind? Yes. Have they used it to develop their states so that their states are reflected activity in that place?
Not so much, I would say.
Absolutely.
Maybe they're not getting enough. Maybe by the
Even
time
with what they have they even shown a difference with what they have?
maybe by the time they get 50% of the derivation, they will do something. I'm not justifying those governors who have not utilized their 13% properly.
Absolutely. Show us what you did first before you can say you want to even get more. Absolutely.
Well, the Senate last week passed the 2019 appropriation bill and jacked it up with about almost 90 billion naira. First, let me ask you, what's your take on the 2019 appropriation bill? Two, do you think it's realistic, given that government in recent times have not been able to meet its revenue projections? And then you have the implementation of the minimum wage bill imputed into this. Do you think it can meet up expectations?
Well, I mean, if you always, the way we do a budget, from year to year, my understanding is that we use the benchmark oil price. Mm-hmm. And that is the basis upon which you compute almost everything. So the revenue line is tied to the benchmark oil price. And of course, we also have revenue from taxes and duties and that kind of stuff. You know, and then of course, we then have capital expenditure and recurrent expenditure. The biggest problem we have, I think, not just this budget, but in previous budgets, that our recurrent expenditure ratio to capital has been warped. You know, I think it's now probably 75% recovery, 25% capex. And there's no way that that kind of ratio can drive growth. Or probably even 80-20, for example. You know, there are times when it was 60-40 or 50-50, 10 years ago. I think Lagos State does 40% recurrent, 60% capital. You get my point. So, because you have an over-bloated, federal government, bias, and people, then your recurrent expenditure is much, much higher than ought to be the case. Okay, that's one. Secondly, on the capital side, what you have in capital, again, because revenues is not as robust as it should be, you're going to finance a budget with a massive deficit. And that deficit means that you have to go and borrow from the market to fund your deficit. And if you borrow from the market to fund your deficit, what do? You push up rates. And therefore, it makes it more attractive for banks and other investors to buy government bonds than to lend to the real sector. What do? You strangulate the economy. Strangulate the economy, then where are they going to make the profits to pay the taxes you want? Where would they have the working capital to import raw materials for the duties you want them to pay at the port? So what happens? As you strangulate the economy, the revenue forecast you have on the tax side, on the customs duty side, you will meet it. On the oil production side, oil price can affect it. Volume of production can affect it based on whatever happens in the areas where they're producing, any vandalization of infrastructure. So those things, again, are beyond our control. By the time you put all these things up, there are too many variables that may not make the budget to meet targets set for themselves. And until we really take a look at the way we spend money as a country, especially on the recurrent side, I'm not so sure that any budget is going to make any meaningful impact.
In other words, you're saying this budget is unrealistic?
Don't quote me that it's not realistic.
Okay.
The point is that I think it's going to be very tough for them to achieve what they want to achieve within the kind of framework in which we operate.
And when you add the 30,000 naira minimum wage at the last minute to the budget.
You see, even that, I don't have a problem with that minimum wage because at the end of the day, people have to have a living wage. You get a point. Whether 30,000 is even the living wage is questionable. But the point is that, if you increase wages on that side, you get a point. And the number of people that are earning those wages are not even adding any value. What you get a point. All of us have staff that we engage or employ. When you have a staff that really you don't know why you're employing him anymore, what do you do for her? You say, thank you very much for your services, and go and find work somewhere else. But we carry this massive number of people, and this continues to add to the cost of running the country. And the more you spend on recurrent, the less likelihood they're going to get economic growth in this economy. You know.
Okay, the 2019 budget is waiting for the president's signature. Now, going forward, the president is starting a new 4-year term. And if you were to advise him what to do differently, because you also mentioned tweaking the tax law using the annual budget. So what would be your advice for President Buhari going forward in his next 4 years to really grow this economy the way you are anticipating?
I think government has to step back from doing too many things and create a space for private sector to really, take a lead in areas where they have better expertise. Simple things. It may sound simple, but some people think it's complex. Why is government running airports? Globally, no government running airports any longer. Well, airport security is an issue that they always use as an excuse. But you still have airport security in the largest and best airports globally. But the running of airports, management of airports, investing in the airport infrastructure, attracting large carriers to come into your country, it's not a government activity any longer. Concession the airports, privatize the refineries, concession even many more ports, concession the railway lines they're building. Give it to the expertise that can run this infrastructure, and they can put money into it and run it for 30, 40 years. Okay? That's one, for example, one space. Other space, look at the sectors which you would like to attract investors, and go to investors. What would you like to see to make this sector attractive for you? Auto industry. If you really think you want to have an auto industry, after Morocco, produces 600,000 cars per annum. There's a market not just in Morocco, but in export. What would it take to bring some of the big car manufacturers, a big car manufacturer, investing $500 million into an auto plant? It's small money for them. It's not big money, and they're not looking for a return in 1 year or 2 years. They're here for the long haul. After all, you have big companies like Unilever and Heineken and Guinness and Nestle. They've been here for 30, 40, 50 years. And as they grow their business, they expand and build new factories. They're not going to go anywhere overnight. Agriculture. We're talking about culture. We need to have a functioning commodities exchange. That commodity exchange will not only just be an exchange where people just come and buy and sell commodities, but the back end of it is all the inputs into the exchange. Your silos, your storage, your warehouses, your standards, and your market makers, the off-takers, and you just realize the whole sector, so that agriculture becomes not just a farming business, but a real added value agribusiness to the economy.
Great advice. But one sticky point in all of what you've said is the privatization of the NNPC, which this government has said repeatedly it would not do. Remember, that was controversial in the run-up to the 2019 general elections, because the PDP candidate did say this is something he would do. Sure. Why do you think that the APC government would not want to privatize the NNPC?
Well, I don't think I've heard that they won't privatize. I haven't heard that statement. And I think, if you look at the petroleum industry bill, one of the things it tried to achieve is say, look, rather than this joint venture remains to hand for many years, where government and the IOCs have to do cash calls and put money into the pot, and then they use it to do production, and then eventually we get our own share of oil production. The Nigeria LNG is a clear-cut example, where it has been capitalized as an incorporated JV, all the partners together, putting their capital for day one. They build the plant and generate revenue streams and profits. And then if they want to expand, either amongst themselves they raise money to expand, or they go to the markets, international markets, to raise money to expand. And because I have a strong track record of profitability over the years, international markets will always respond positively to give them funding for expansion. Okay? And what does the government take from it? Governments take, people don't realize that, governments take in every company, whether government-owned or privately managed or publicly quoted, is taxes. So, I don't care what company you own. The first person you pay after you make profits, you should pay taxman first before you pay dividend to shareholders. Whether you're a bank, you're a telco. So the many more companies we have that are successful and profitable, the more tax revenue comes to the government. After taxes, before you can declare dividend. Okay? So NNPC has 49% of Nigeria LNG. Between the taxes it gets paid plus the dividend it makes, they probably make, I don't know, $2, $3, $4 billion a year, just from that activity alone. So each of the JVs can be converted from joint ventures to incorporated JVs, similar to Nigeria LNG. And does government have to own 60%? No. Why should they own 60%? They can own 40%. Because in any case, if you have an investment, you derive annual profits or dividends from the investment. But also, in the time when you need to unlock the investment to use the cash to grow the economy, you do so. You don't hold an investment perpetuity down. And it's like me, it's like any of us, we have investments, and all of a sudden the economy is slowed down, and we don't have any cash to replace the car or to pay our children's school fees. What do? You sell part of the investment. Use it to do what you want to do. And when things turn around and you have more surplus, you can go back and reinvest if you want to. Particularly if you're investing for retirement. And when you invest for retirement, when you retire, what do? You have no more income coming in. You live off the investment income. And at some point, you may even need to even sell some of the investment. Because when we leave this earth, we leave it for somebody else anyway. You can't point. So,
Yes.
so for me, there needs to be a fundamental change in the way we all run the oil industry.
And there's a template, the LNG template, which government can look at.
Which government is a party to.
Party to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Mr. Liberty, thank you very much for coming to our program. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks a lot.
It's time now for a short break. When we come back, we'll bring you a Rise News interview with Tiwa Savage, Nigerian music diva. Stay tuned.